I never thought I'd be that guy, the one whose wife cheated on him. I mean, I was the one who put in the effort. My name is Mark, and my life felt pretty normal until it didn't. I remember when Sarah and I first got together. We were young and in love, two kids who thought they could conquer the world. We had those silly little nicknames for each other and spent hours talking about our dreams. The early days were pure magic. Fast forward 10 years and here we were, living in a cozy house in suburban Ohio, the cliché picture of happiness. But things had started to shift. In the last few months, I noticed Sarah had been distant. It started small. She was less interested in our evening talks and more glued to her phone. She would often leave the room to take calls, claiming it was just work stuff, but I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Her laughter felt forced, and she'd become increasingly secretive. The sweet notes she used to leave me in the morning were replaced with mundane grocery lists. I brushed it off at first. Life happens, right? But deep down, something gnawed at me. The turning point came one evening while I was cleaning our bedroom. I was looking for a pair of socks that had mysteriously vanished, and as I sifted through her things, I found it, a bracelet with our initials M and S engraved on it. It hung there like a trophy, a symbol of everything we built together. But when I flipped it over, my heart dropped. There were other initials, T and S, crudely etched into the metal. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. T would have to stand for Tom, her coworker who had been working late quite a bit recently. That night when Sarah came home, I was a bundle of nerves. My mind raced with what I had found, but I knew I needed proof before I confronted her. I started noticing more details. Her late nights at work, the sudden interest in her appearance, and the way she smiled at her phone. It was all fitting together like a horrifying puzzle. A couple of days later, I took a leap of faith. I decided to check her phone while she was in the shower, hoping for some incriminating texts or evidence that would confirm my worst fears. When I unlocked it, my heart raced. The first thing I saw were messages between Sarah and Tom, filled with flirty emojis and plans to meet up. It was almost unbearable to read. They had been meeting at some hotel downtown, taking weekends away, and even discussing traveling together. I felt a mixture of rage and betrayal, a toxic cocktail of emotions. I knew I had to confront her. The moment she stepped out of the shower, I was ready. I could barely contain my anger. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I could see the confusion on her face. She had that towel wrapped around her like a shield. "What's wrong, Mark?" she asked, feigning innocence that made me want to scream. I held up her phone, the incriminating messages flashing on the screen. "Care to explain this?" Her reaction was almost comical. She went pale, her eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. "Mark, I can explain. It's not what it looks like," she stammered, panic setting in. "Not what it looks like you've been sleeping with Tom while I've been at home thinking everything was fine." She tried to spin a tale about how it was just a fling, how she felt neglected, and how they were just friends. The words spilled out of her so fast I could barely keep up. "It wasn't supposed to be serious," she exclaimed, her voice rising. I felt the ground beneath me shift as her excuses tumbled out. I didn't want to hear it. I stood there, feeling my world crumble. The emotional weight hit me like a freight train. I had trusted her, believed in our marriage, and she had betrayed that trust in the most gut-wrenching way possible. In that moment, I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of clarity. This was the beginning of something I never wanted but had to face. I had to decide how to move forward from here. The shock of discovering Sarah's betrayal settled over me like a thick fog. I wanted to scream, to shake her awake from whatever delusion she was living in. But instead, I felt a strange calmness wash over me as I processed the waves of hurt crashing against my heart. I was no longer just the betrayed husband. I was a man who had been wronged, and I needed to figure out my next steps. For a couple of days, I went into a sort of haze. I still managed to go to work, put on a brave face, and keep my routine, but my mind was elsewhere. I would find myself staring blankly at my computer screen, the numbers and graphs blurring into a haze. My coworkers probably thought I was distracted by some mundane problem, but the truth was far more significant. I was grappling with the loss of my marriage, my trust, and my dignity. Sarah would text me, asking if I wanted to talk, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. I needed space to think, to plan my next move. I started to connect with friends I hadn't spoken to in ages. I needed their insights, their perspectives, and most importantly, their support. I met up with Jake, my best friend since college. He could always read me like a book, and when he saw the look on my face, he knew something was wrong. Over drinks at our favorite bar, I spilled the whole story, from the initial signs of trouble to the damning texts I had found. "Man, I'm sorry," he said, his brow furrowed with concern. "You deserve better than that. You need to confront her again, but this time you need a plan. She can't just keep spinning this story of neglect." His words resonated with me. I realized that I had been sitting back, waiting for Sarah to come clean, but clearly she was not going to. I needed to take control of the situation. I spent the next few days meticulously planning my confrontation. I compiled more evidence, taking screen captures of the texts and even notes on her behavior. I wanted to have everything laid out in front of her, to show her that I wouldn't be the victim in this story. On the weekend, I decided it was time to have another talk. I asked Sarah to meet me in the living room, my heart racing as I prepared for what was to come. She walked in, and there was that familiar mix of annoyance and cunning in her eyes. "What now, Mark? I thought we talked this through," she said, crossing her arms defensively. "No, Sarah, we didn't talk through anything. You lied to me, and I need you to understand the gravity of what you've done," I said, taking a deep breath. I laid out the evidence in front of her, the messages, the late-night calls, the excuses. I could see the color drain from her face as the reality of her actions hit her all over again. "Mark, I didn't mean for it to go this far," she stammered, trying to defend herself. "It was just a mistake." I was feeling lost, and Tom was there. He was just different. "Different? Is that the excuse you're going with? You think I'm going to buy that?" I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me again, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You had everything, Sarah. You had me, a life we built together, and you threw it away for what? A fling." I watched as her eyes darted, searching for a way out of this confrontation. "I was unhappy. You've been so focused on work and your hobbies that I felt alone." I wanted to feel desired again, with each word. It felt like she was trying to shift the blame onto me. I was furious, but I also felt a twinge of sadness. Had I really been so wrapped up in my own world that I hadn't noticed her fatting? But that wasn't the entire truth, was it? Cheating isn't justified by feeling neglected. I couldn't let her manipulate the narrative to make me feel guilty for her decision to cheat. "This isn't about me, Sarah. You made choices, and now we need to face the consequences." She fell silent, tears forming in her eyes, but I was done with her tears. I needed to be strong, to take control of my life moving forward. "I need time to think about what I want. This marriage, it's not the same anymore." With that statement, I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. I was finally taking a stand for myself. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wouldn't allow myself to be a doormat anymore. In the days that followed, I was a whirlwind of emotions. I went from anger to sadness, but underneath it all, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. I began to recognize my worth, to understand that I didn't deserve this betrayal. I started making plans, not just for my marriage, but for my life. I would find my freedom, whether it was with Sarah or without her. I didn't know which path I'd choose yet, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose. After that intense confrontation with Sarah, I felt as if I had stepped into a new chapter of my life, one where I wouldn't be dictated by her choices or her lies. I spent the next week trying to navigate this strange limbo I found myself in. The house that once felt like a refuge now felt like a prison, filled with echoes of our past together, a constant reminder of her betrayal. I decided to take some time for myself, to focus on healing and rediscovering who I was outside of the context of my marriage. I started exercising again, hitting the gym with an intensity I hadn't felt in years. There was something therapeutic about pushing my body, about feeling the sweat drip and the adrenaline pump through my veins. It was a way to reclaim my strength, both physically and mentally. I also reached out to old friends, reconnecting with people I had lost touch with over the years. I was surprised at how much support I received. They listened, offered advice, and shared their stories of heartbreak and healing. I realized I wasn't alone in this struggle, that many people had faced similar betrayals and had come out stronger on the other side. One evening, while out for drinks with Jake, I shared my thoughts about what to do next in my life. You know, man, I can't keep dwelling on what went wrong with Sarah. I need to figure out what I want moving forward, I said, staring into my glass of bourbon. Jake nodded knowingly. That's the right mindset. You've got to focus on you for a change. Think about what makes you happy, what you want for your future. The idea of rediscovering myself felt liberating. I started taking a few classes in photography, something I had always wanted to do but had pushed aside in favor of work and family. I spent weekends exploring nearby parks and taking photos of nature, trying to capture moments that evoked emotion. It felt good to express myself in a new way to find beauty in the world that didn't revolve around my marriage. But just when I thought I was healing, Sarah's presence loomed like a dark cloud. She kept reaching out, sending me texts that ranged from "I miss you" to "Can we talk about this?" I felt a mix of frustration and pity for her. She couldn't seem to understand that I needed space, that I was no longer the man who would bend over backward to save what was left of our marriage. One night, I finally decided to respond. I texted her, "I'm not ready to talk. I need time to figure things out." I hit send and felt a rush of relief. I was taking control of my narrative, refusing to let her manipulate my emotions any longer. A few days later, Sarah showed up at my office. I was in a meeting when I saw her through the glass window, packing nervously in the hallway. A surge of anxiety hit me. I wasn't prepared for this. I excused myself from the meeting and stepped out, bracing myself for whatever she was about to throw at me. "Mark, can we talk?" she said, biting her lip, her voice shaky. "Sarah, this isn't the place. Can we go somewhere private?" I replied, trying to keep my composure. We ended up at a small cafe down the street. As we sat across from each other, I could see the worry etched on her face. She looked like a lost child, and part of me felt a flicker of sympathy. But I quickly pushed that aside. I had to remember the reality of the situation. "Mark, I know I messed up. I'm sorry for everything. I've been doing a lot of thinking," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thinking about what exactly, how to cover your tracks, or how to make me feel guilty." I snapped, unable to hold back the anger that bubbled to the surface. "Please, it's not like that. I'm trying to be honest with you now." "Honest?" I replied incredulously. "What about all the lies? You've been living a double life and now you want to sit here and act like you're the victim." She looked down, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know I hurt you, but I want to make it right. I want to fix this." I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow. "You can't fix something that's broken beyond repair, Sarah. I don't trust you anymore. I don't think I can ever trust you again." For a moment, silence hung between us like a heavy blanket. I could see her struggling for words, but I had made my decision. I was done letting her dictate the terms of our relationship. "Mark, please, just give me another chance," she pleaded, her voice cracking. I felt my heart soften for a moment, but then I remembered the betrayal, the lies. I couldn't go back to that. "I need to move forward with my life, and I can't do that if you're still in it the way things were." Her face fell, and I could see the realization hit her. "So, what does this mean for us?" "It means I need space. I need to figure out my own life without you in it for a while." I could tell she didn't want to accept it, but I felt a sense of finality in my words. I was done being the victim in our story. It was time for me to take charge of my own life, even if it meant hurting her in the process. I stood up, ready to leave, and as I walked away, I felt a strange sense of liberation. Each step I took was a step toward reclaiming my identity, my happiness, and my freedom. But the path ahead was still uncertain. Would I be able to fully let go of our marriage, or was I just postponing the inevitable? As the days turned into weeks, I focused on the positive changes in my life after distancing myself from Sarah. I threw myself into my photography classes, finding joy in learning something new and expressing my creativity. The more I immersed myself in this new hobby, the more I realized how much I had neglected my passions while trying to maintain my marriage. The camera became a tool for not just capturing beauty, but also for reconnecting with myself. Still, the emotional weight of Sarah's betrayal didn't entirely lift. I often found myself wrestling with feelings of anger and sadness, and I had moments when I would replay everything in my mind like a broken record. I thought of the good times we had shared, our trips, our laughter, the dreams we had built together, only to have them washed away by the cold reality of infidelity. One night I decided to visit a local art exhibition. I wandered through the halls, lost in the stunning visuals, allowing myself to breathe and reflect. It was a refreshing escape from the chaos of my thoughts. At one point, I found a quiet corner to sit and collect my thoughts. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through images I had taken over the past few weeks. My heart swelled with pride as I admired my progress. Suddenly, I felt a presence beside me. I looked up to see a woman in her late 20s, her blonde hair highlighted under the gallery lights. "Nice shots," she said, peering at my phone. "You've got a good eye for composition." "Thanks," I replied, surprised by the compliment. "I'm just starting out." She offered her name, Lily, and we struck up a conversation about photography. I found myself opening up to her in a way I hadn't anticipated. Talking about my newfound passion felt liberating. As we chatted, I could feel the weight of my recent past begin to lift, even if just for a moment. Lily had a contagious energy, and we exchanged numbers before parting ways. I felt a spark of excitement that I hadn't experienced in ages. Maybe this was the fresh start I needed, not necessarily romantically, but as a step toward a new chapter in my life. A few days later, Lily and I met up for coffee. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, and I found myself laughing and enjoying her company. It felt good to connect with someone who didn't know my past, someone who didn't carry the burden of my heartbreak. There was a lightness about her that reminded me life could still be enjoyable despite everything I had been through. As much as I enjoyed these moments, I was also careful. My heart was still bruised, and I wasn't ready to dive into any serious relationship. I made it clear to Lily that I had recently gone through some tough times, and I wasn't sure what I was looking for. To my surprise, she respected that. "I'm just happy to be here getting to know you," she said with a smile, and I felt relieved by her understanding. But just as I began to feel hopeful about moving forward, Sarah re-entered the picture. One afternoon, I received a text from her. "Can we meet? I need to talk about something important." My heart sank, but a part of me was curious. What could possibly be so important now? I hesitated, then agreed to meet her at the cafe where we'd had our previous confrontation. When I arrived, I saw her sitting at a table, her expression a mix of nervousness and determination. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever she was about to say. "Thanks for coming," she said, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting with her hands. "I know this is awkward, but I've been doing a lot of thinking." "About what, your affair, or how to regain my trust?" I asked, feeling the familiar anger rise within me. "Please just hear me out." She took a deep breath. "I want to apologize properly. I've been going to therapy and I realized how selfish I was. I was unhappy, but that doesn't justify what I did." I wanted to scoff at her words, too. Remind her that therapy shouldn't erase the pain she caused, but I held my tongue. "Okay, I'm listening. I've been working on understanding why I cheated," she continued. "I thought I could fill a void with Tom, but all I did was hurt you. I miss you, Mark. I want to make it right." The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard, but I remained guarded. "And how do you propose to do that?" "I don't expect you to take me back," she said, her voice trembling. "But I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to heal and be a better person. I want you to have closure, and if that means walking away for good, I'll accept it." Her words hung in the air, and I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me. Part of me wanted to believe her, to forgive her and try to make things work, but another part of me screamed at the thought of reopening that painful chapter. "Sarah, it's not that simple. You destroyed my trust. I don't know if I can come back from that. I get that," she replied earnestly. "But I'm here, ready to change if you'll let me. I don't want to lose you, and I'll do anything to prove that." As we sat there, I was struck by the intensity of the moment. I could see she was genuine, but I couldn't help but wonder if it was too little, too late. I needed time to think, to process what this meant for my future. Would I be giving her another chance, or would I be opening the door to further heartache? "Let me think about it," I said finally, feeling the weight of the decision settle in my chest. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a mix of confusion and uncertainty. I had to figure out what I wanted, not just for myself, but for the life I envisioned ahead of me. With each step, I knew I was inching closer to a resolution, but the path forward remained foggy. I was torn between the past I wanted to heal from and the potential future that still felt uncertain. In the days following my conversation with Sarah, I was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I kept replaying her apology in my mind, analyzing her words for signs of sincerity. It was clear she was genuinely remorseful, but could I trust that her transformation was real? I felt torn between two worlds, the life I had envisioned with her and the painful reality of her betrayal. To clear my head, I focused on my photography. I spent hours wandering the city, capturing candid moments that reminded me of the beauty still present in life. One Saturday, I attended a local street fair, snapping photos of vibrant stalls filled with handmade crafts and laughing children. Each click of the shutter became a moment of catharsis, a reminder that life continued despite the chaos swirling around me. During one of my outings, I received a text from Lily. "Hey, how about we grab a bite this weekend? I'd love to see more of your work." Her enthusiasm was contagious, and I found myself smiling at the thought of spending time with someone who didn't carry the weight of my past. We met at a trendy little diner, and I felt a spark of excitement as we chatted about life, art, and our dreams. Lily was refreshing. Her laughter was genuine, and she had a way of making me feel alive again, as if the shadows that had loomed over my heart were finally fading. "Let's take a photo together," she suggested, pulling her phone out. I felt a rush of joy as we struck goofy poses, laughing and playfully teasing each other. In those moments, I felt a glimpse of what happiness could look like again. But even amidst this newfound connection, Sarah's presence loomed large in my mind. I spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, wrestling with what I wanted. Should I give her another chance? Or should I fully embrace this new possibility with Lily? One night, as I lay awake, I made a list of pros and cons. Giving Sarah a second chance meant risking my heart again, but it also meant the possibility of healing our relationship. On the other hand, pursuing something with Lily felt like a chance to start fresh, free from past baggage. After wrestling with my thoughts, I decided it was time for another conversation with Sarah. I needed clarity both for myself and for her. I texted her, asking to meet again. She replied almost immediately, and I could sense the hope in her response. When we met at the same cafe, I felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. Sarah was already seated, her fingers nervously tapping on the table. As I sat down, I noticed the vulnerability in her eyes. "Thank you for coming, Mark," she said softly. "Let's just talk," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I've been thinking a lot about what I said the other day," she began. "I know I hurt you deeply, and I can't change the past. But I want to work on myself and our relationship if you're willing to give me another chance." "Sarah, I appreciate that you're trying to take responsibility," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to be honest with you. Trust is something that takes time to rebuild, and I'm scared that I might forgive you but never forget." She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "I understand that. I just want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve. I've realized that my actions stemmed from my own insecurities and feelings of inadequacy. I want to change that. Change takes time." "I need to see that you really mean it," I replied, weighing my words carefully. "I've also started to connect with someone new. Lily has been a breath of fresh air for me. I don't want to hurt you further, but I can't ignore the fact that I'm drawn to her." That admission seemed to hit Sarah like a slap. She looked hurt, but I had to be honest. "I'm not asking you to wait for me, but I need time to figure out what I want," I said gently. "I can understand that," she replied, her voice steady despite the tears. "I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me. I just hope you'll consider giving us another shot." We continued talking, discussing the potential paths ahead. I could see she was genuinely committed to making changes, but the thought of jumping back into our marriage felt like a leap into the unknown. As we finished our conversation, I realized that, no matter what decision I made, it had to come from a place of self-respect. I didn't want to be someone who stayed out of fear, nor did I want to rush into something without considering the consequences. When I left the cafe, I felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. I had laid my cards on the table, and now I needed to reflect on what I truly wanted. The possibility of rebuilding my marriage or embracing something new with Lily loomed ahead like a fork in the road. In the days that followed, I found myself leaning into my photography and reconnecting with my passions. I felt lighter, as if the burden of indecision was slowly lifting. But the question still haunted me. Would I choose to forgive Sarah and attempt to mend what was broken, or would I embrace the new chapter that was unfolding with Lily? The answer remained elusive, but I knew that whatever I decided, it had to be a choice made from love for myself. As I navigated through this complex emotional landscape, I found comfort in the idea that I was finally reclaiming my life. Whether it was with Sarah or Lily, I was learning to prioritize my happiness and embrace the freedom of choice. Each day brought new possibilities, and I was ready to step into the unknown, whatever that might mean. The weeks that followed felt like a roller coaster. I found myself caught between two worlds, the familiar one I had shared with Sarah and the new possibilities that lay ahead with Lily. Each time I thought I had clarity, new doubts crept in. I continued to reflect on everything that had happened, weighing my options like a judge at a competition. After an especially introspective weekend, I decided to take a trip to a nearby state park for some solitude. I packed my camera and hiked through the trails, seeking solace in nature. The fresh air and beautiful landscapes provided a much-needed escape. As I stood at the edge of a serene lake, the reflection of the trees dancing on the water, I had an epiphany. I realized that I had been so focused on trying to make a decision that I hadn't taken the time to truly connect with my own feelings. I needed to follow my heart and not just my mind. This was about my happiness, my future, and my well-being. It was about finding someone who matched my energy, who appreciated me for who I was rather than who I could be. When I returned home, I was met with a text from Lily. "Hey, I've been thinking about you. How do you feel about meeting up this week?" The excitement I felt upon reading it was undeniable. There was something real and refreshing about my connection with her. I replied, "I'd love to grab dinner. Let's celebrate this new friendship." As I sent the message, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was choosing to embrace the possibilities rather than dwell in the past. That evening, we met at a cozy Italian restaurant. Over pasta and wine, I felt the spark between us grow stronger. I shared my journey of healing and self-discovery, and Lily opened up about her own struggles and dreams. I learned that she had a passion for painting, and her enthusiasm was infectious. It felt good to laugh and enjoy life again, free from the baggage of my past. As the night unfolded, there was an undeniable chemistry between us. When our eyes locked, I felt something shift inside me. I realized that while Sarah had been part of my life for so long, I was ready to move forward. I was ready to embrace this new connection with Lily, someone who inspired me and made me feel alive. But I also knew I had to have one final conversation with Sarah to provide closure to our past before fully stepping into my future with Lily. The next day, I texted her, asking if we could meet one last time. When we sat down, I could see the apprehension in her eyes. "I assume you're here to tell me what I don't want to hear," she said, her voice tinged with resignation. "Sarah, I appreciate everything we've shared, and I want you to know that I've thought long and hard about us." I began, searching for the right words. "But I've come to realize that I need to focus on my happiness, and I don't think that involves rebuilding our marriage." Tears filled her eyes, but I pressed on. "You have a chance to heal and grow, and I hope you take it. I can't ignore what happened, and I can't pretend that everything will go back to the way it was. I wish you all the best, but I need to move forward with my life." She nodded slowly, her expression a mix of sadness and acceptance. "I understand, Mark. I'm truly sorry for everything. I hope you find the happiness you deserve." As I walked away from that meeting, I felt a profound sense of relief. It was as if a heavy door had closed behind me, allowing light to spill into the dark corners of my mind. I was finally free from the past, ready to embrace new possibilities. In the days that followed, my relationship with Lily blossomed. We explored art galleries, shared our passions, and supported each other in our individual pursuits. I felt myself healing further with every laugh and every moment spent together. The connection we had was refreshing and genuine, and I felt grateful for the journey that had led me to her. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, I understood that this wasn't just about love lost or found. It was about rediscovery. I had learned that true happiness comes from within, and that it's essential to prioritize self-respect and well-being. The experience also taught me that relationships must be grounded in trust, communication, and mutual respect. While my marriage with Sarah had ended, I gained invaluable insights into what I truly wanted in a partner. As I clicked the shutter on my camera one sunny afternoon, capturing a breathtaking sunset with Lily by my side, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was no longer the man who let someone else's choices dictate his happiness. I was taking charge of my own narrative, writing a new chapter filled with hope, growth, and endless possibilities. And just like that, I realized that while it might have taken losing my way to find myself again, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held, confident, hopeful, and free.